Welcome to Quiz Time. I'm your quizmaster, Sean, and I've got 100 trivia questions for you about World War I. So let's reach deep into our brains, pull out our World War I facts, and see how we do. Have a little fun at it, shall we? Let's begin. In what year did World War I officially start? Was it 1910, 1914, or 1918? World War I officially started in 1914. Which constraint caused significant difficulty for Germany throughout the war? The Allied naval blockades, the lack of trade partners, or was it energy shortages? It was Allied naval blockades. Which military force was introduced in Great Britain during World War I? Was it the Royal Navy, the Royal Air Force, or MI6? Introduced in Great Britain in World War I was the Royal Air Force. Why did Russia enter World War I? Were they attacked by Germany? Were they trying to counter German expansionism? Or were they trying to defend allies in Serbia? They're trying to defend their allies in Serbia. Who asked the U.S. Congress to declare war against Germany in 1917? Was it Woodrow Wilson, William Howard Taft, or Warren G. Harding? It was Woodrow Wilson. Which alliance did the Ottoman Empire join during World War I? Was it the Allied forces, the Central Powers, or neither of them? They joined the Central Powers. Which agreement in 1884 stated that European colonies in Africa would remain neutral if there was war in Europe? The Colonization Act of 1884, the African Neutrality Pact, or the Berlin Conference? It was the Berlin Conference. What kind of gun was the Maxim gun used regularly on naval vessels during World War I? Was it the machine gun, the artillery gun, or was it the bazooka? It was the machine gun. What did the defeat of the Ottoman Empire contribute to? Was it the dissolution of the empire, severance of alliance with Germany, or the loss of Middle Eastern territory? It was the dissolution of the empire. What event marked the end of World War I? Was it the Balkan surrender, the Great Retreat, or the Treaty of Versailles? The end of World War I was marked by the Treaty of Versailles. What major event marked the beginning of World War I? Was it the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand? Was it Germany invading Belgium, or the Austria-Hungary declaring war on Serbia? The major event starting World War I was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Which Germany general developed the war plans that were used against France? Was it Helmuth von Moltke, Alfred von Schlieffen, or Paul von Hindenburg? It was Alfred von Schlieffen. Which policy shift did Great Britain make due to the demands of the war? Was it rationing of food supplies, seizing of civilian assets, or the conscription instead of volunteering? They started drafting instead of taking volunteers only. When did Russia exit World War I? Was it 1918, 1917, or 1920? Russia exited World War I in 1917. What reason was cited for the U.S. entry into World War I? The German use of submarines, assisting allies in Europe, or protection of trade partners? The reason given was the German use of submarines against our shipping. Who was the primary opponent for the Ottoman Empire in Europe? Was it France, Italy, or Russia? The Ottoman Empire's primary opponent in Europe was Russia. Which East African nation was a German stronghold in the beginning of World War I? Was it Tanzania, Kenya, or was it Uganda? It was Tanzania. When was the first battle where chlorine gas was used by the Germans? Was it the Battle of Tory Hill, the Battle of Amiens, or the Battle of Ypres? It was the Battle of Ypres. What was World War I often called after the war? Was it called the Great War, the First War, or Europe's War? It was called the Great War. The Treaty of Versailles had what unexpected consequences? Was it creating a stronger Central Powers? Was it pushing Germany into World War II? Or drawing up unrealistic territories? They pushed Germany into World War II. What did Germany demand from Belgium at the beginning of the war? Free passage for troops? To remain neutral? Or were they demanding war reparations? Germany was demanding free passage for troops. How long did the stalemate at the trenches last? 3 years? 6 months? Or 2 years? The stalemate at the trenches, that lasted for 3 years. What was the Kitchener's Army in Great Britain? A special forces unit? A volunteer force in the army? Or retired soldiers called back for service? Kitchener's Army was a volunteer force in the army. Which battle resulted in significant losses for the Russian army? Was it the Battle of Tannenberg, the Battle of Stalingrad, or the Battle of the Eastern Front? It was the Battle of Tannenberg. When did the U.S. officially declare war on Germany and Austria-Hungary in 1917? December 7th, April 4th, or was it March 19th? The U.S. officially declared war on December 7th, 1917. When was the German-Ottoman alliance ratified in 1914? Was it on October 29th, December 17th, or was it August 2nd? That one was ratified on August the 2nd. What was the nickname given to General Paul Emil von Lettow-Vorbeck, the German commander in East Africa? Commander of Kilimanjaro, the Lion of Africa, or General Moshi? He was called the Lion of Africa. How many rounds could a Maxim gun fire per minute? 600 rounds, 1,000 rounds, or 400 rounds per minute? A Maxim gun could fire 600 rounds per minute. Why were deaths from World War I significantly higher than previous wars? Was it due to dense populations, new weapon technologies, or outdated fighting styles? It was due to new weapon technologies. Which of the Central Powers was the first to surrender? Was it the Ottoman Empire? Was it Austria-Hungary? Or was it Bulgaria? Bulgaria was the first to surrender. Which country came to aid Belgium after Germany's invasion? Was it England, France, or Russia? It was France who came to Belgium's aid. Who did Germany win unexpected victories against early in the war? Was it against France, Belgium, or Russia? They won unexpected victories against Russia. Which was the first major independent British military operation? Was it the Battle of Somme, the Battle of Mons, or the Battle of the Bulge? It was the Battle of Somme. Who was leading the Russian Empire during the beginning of World War I? Was it Tsar Nicholas II? Was it Vladimir Lenin? Or was it Tsar Bolshevik III? Tsar Nicholas II was leading Russia at the beginning of World War I. What was the deal struck between Germany and the U.S. in 1916 to restrict submarine attacks? Was it the Treaty of Berlin, the Black Sea Compromise, or the Sussex Pledge? It was the Sussex Pledge. What was the Committee on Union and Progress, CUP, commonly called in the Ottoman Empire? The Young Turks, the New Ottomans, or the Balkan Estates? It was called the Young Turks. The last German warboat on Lake Tanganyika was called by what name? Was it MV Liamba, Graf von Gotzen, or Hedwig von Wissmann? It was the Graf von Gotzen. What was developed by the British Royal Navy to combat German submarines? Was it depth charges, torpedoes, or sonar? They developed depth charges. Around how many casualties were there from World War I, including both military and civilians? 5 million casualties, 10 million casualties, or 20 million casualties? There were 20 million casualties from World War I. What major consequences did the surrender of Bulgaria have on the Central Powers? Did it separate Ottoman Turks in Germany, reduce aircraft battalions, or strengthen Allied morale? It separated Ottoman Turks and Germany. The alliance of Russia, France, and Great Britain was called what? Were they the Allies, the Central Powers, or were they called the Alliance? They were called the Allies. What was one of the biggest struggles Germany faced in 1916 and 17 as the war dragged on? Was it the dwindling male population, starvation, or poor morale? They were facing starvation. What were PAL battalions formed in Great Britain? Separate squads that stuck together, battalions of young soldiers, or geography-based squads? What were PAL battalions? They were geography-based squads. What was one of the major consequences of Russia's involvement in World War I? Was it the overthrowing of the monarchy, losing Western territory, or souring relations with England? It was the overthrowing of the monarchy. Who was the German chancellor who protested the use of submarines in 1917? Was it Theobald von Bothmann-Hollweg? Was it William II? Or was it Johann von Bernstorff? It was Theobald von Bothmann-Hollweg. What did Sultan Mehmed V do early on during World War I to garner more support for the army? Did he conscript from every territory? Did he declare a jihad? Or did he exchange land for service? He declared a jihad. German East Africa is now known by what name? Tanzania, Rwanda, or is it Uganda? German East Africa is now known as Tanzania. What type of rifle was the primary weapon used throughout World War I? Was it the repeating rifle, the bolt-action rifle, or the automatic rifle? The primary weapon used throughout World War I was the repeating rifle. How many empires collapsed as a result of World War I? 2 empires? 4 empires? Or 10 empires? Four empires collapsed as a result of World War I. Which country emerged as a direct result of World War I? Was it Uganda, Prussia, or Poland? Poland emerged as a country as a direct result of World War I. Which nation in World War I started out with a volunteer army rather than a conscripted army? Was it Great Britain, Austria-Hungary, or was it France? Great Britain started out with a volunteer army. What type of warfare did Germany begin in hopes of winning a quick victory? Trench warfare, submarine warfare, or was it gas warfare? It was submarine warfare. How did the British rapidly increase the size of their army early on during the war? Was it through mass propaganda, conscription, or reinstating retired service members? Mass propaganda. Which event led to Vladimir Lenin seizing power in Russia? Was it the Bolshevik Rebellion, the February Revolution, or the October Revolution? Lenin seized power during the October Revolution. What executive order did Woodrow Wilson sign in 1917 to address German attacks on U.S. merchant ships? Naval arms on U.S. ships, changing of U.S. shipping routes, or restricting trade of U.S. weapons? He put naval arms on U.S. ships. What was the campaign fought between the British Empire and the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East? Was it the Middle Eastern Front, the Mesopotamian Campaign, or the Indo-Ottoman Campaign? They fought the Mesopotamian Campaign. What was the main motivation for Allied invasions of German colonies in Africa? Was it the disrupting of supply chains, distracting German military forces, or attempting to control new colonial territory? They were attempting to control new colonial territory. What gave Zeppelins a slight advantage in aerial warfare during World War I? Was it because they could fly at higher altitudes than planes? They had a higher carrying capacity? Or did they have superior guns? They could fly at higher altitudes than planes. Which political movement gained ground in many countries after World War I? Was it communism, nationalism, or secularism? Nationalism gained ground in many countries. Women in many countries gained what right after the war? Was it the right to vote, the right to work, or the right to join the military? They gained the right to vote. What asset helped Germany and Austria with troop movement early in the war? Was it the road network, railroads, or canals? It was the railroads. What was a name that referred to the lower house of German parliament during World War I? Was it the Bundestag, the Platz, or the Reichstag? The lower house was the Reichstag. Who was the King of England during World War I? Was it King Edward II, King George V, or King Henry III? The King of England during World War I was King George V. The Bolsheviks eventually founded what political entity? Was it the Communist Party, the Red State, or was it the Soviet Union? They eventually formed the Soviet Union. Which document released by the British helped sway the U.S. public toward declaring war on Germany? Was it the Zimmermann Telegram, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, or the Treaty of Bucharest? It was the Zimmermann Telegram. Who was a powerful war minister in the Ottoman Empire who survived multiple attempts on his life? Was it Enver Pasha, Talat Pasha, or Rami Bey? It was Enver Pasha. Which country served as a base for British operations in the Middle East and Africa throughout the war? Was it Algeria, Kenya, or Egypt? It was Egypt. Where were chemical weapons used the most by German armies? Was it on the Western Front, the Eastern Front, or did they use them most in the Middle East? They used them the most on the Western Front. Which international organization was formed to avoid future conflicts? Was it the United Nations, the League of Nations, or the International Committee for Peace? Following World War I, it was the League of Nations that was formed. Where was the armistice to end the war signed? On a train carriage, in a courthouse, or a general's private home? The armistice to end the war was held on a train carriage. Which naval advantage did Great Britain have over Germany? Was it warship technology, warship numbers, or favorable port locations? They had an advantage with warship numbers. Which political party was in power in Germany during the First World War? Was it the Nazi Socialist German Workers' Party, the Center Party, or the Social Democratic Party? It was the Social Democratic Party. What was the name of the British Prime Minister who advised the King to declare war on Germany? Was it Winston Churchill, H.H. Asquith, or David Lloyd George? It was H.H. Asquith. Why did Russia suffer heavy military losses fighting against the Germans? Was it because of a lack of a good military strategy, cuts to supply lines, or a low number of soldiers? It was a lack of a good military strategy. What actions led to the perception that the U.S. was no longer neutral in World War I? Was it defensive naval battles, trade with Allied nations, or supplying weapons to Allied forces? It was supplying weapons to Allied forces. What was the first major conflict between the Russian and Ottoman forces? The Battle of the Balkans, the Caucasus skirmishes, or the Battle of Sarikamish? It was the Battle of Sarikamish. Which campaign fought in Africa was the only one that did not involve African troops? Was it the Southwest Africa campaign? I guess it's a true or false. It was the Southwest Africa campaign. What was the nickname given to the largest artillery guns used in ground warfare? Was it Big Bertha, Grenadine, or Dusty Sue? It was Big Bertha. What changed most in the European colonies in Africa after World War I? Were the colonies abandoned? Was Germany excluded from trade? Or did French replace the German language? Germany was excluded from trade. How much did Germany have to pay in reparations under the Treaty of Versailles? $17 billion, $31 billion, or $49 billion? They had to pay $31 billion. On what day did Germany invade Belgium? Was it July 28th, August 3rd, or August 4th? Germany began to invade Belgium on August the 3rd. What treaty created a tenuous peace with Russia in 1917? Was it the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, the Treaty of Rostov-on-Don, or the Treaty of Volgograd? It was the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Which political party was prominently in power in Great Britain during World War I? Was it the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, or the Liberal Party? It was the Liberal Party in power. Who was the spiritual advisor who was blamed for influencing some of Tsar Nicholas II's decisions? Was it Rasputin, Starsky, or Petrov? That spiritual advisor was Rasputin. Where did U.S. troops first arrive in Europe to fight the Germans? Was it in Germany, England, or France? U.S. troops first arrived in France. Which British general was key to defeating the Ottoman Empire forces? Was it Edmund Allenby, Edwin Alderson, or Ernest Alexander? And that general was Edmund Allenby. What controversy did the Decree of 1912 create in French Black Africa? Mixed white and black battalions, mandatory conscription, or was it mass rebellions against colonizers? It was mandatory conscription. Which military tool was still used widely in World War I throughout Europe? Was it muskets, cannons, or cavalry? Still being used widely even in World War I was cavalry, people on horses. What economic force hit the hardest in Africa after the war ended? Was it inflation, high commodity demands, or production shortfalls? It was inflation. What was Germany restricted from doing after the war ended? Was it recruiting new members into the army, having an air force, or manufacturing weapons? Germany was restricted from having an air force. At which battle did trench warfare begin? Was it the First Battle of the Marne, the Battle of Mons, the Battle of Tannenberg? Trench warfare began at the First Battle of the Marne. What party did William II lead in Germany in 1918? Was it the Social Democrats, the Fatherland Party, or the First Reich? He led the Fatherland Party. When was the first time that British and German forces met in battle? Was it at the Battle of Mons, the Battle of Frontiers, or the Battle of the Sambre? It was at the Battle of Mons. Why were people unhappy with the reign of Tsar Nicholas II? Was it because of his poor decision-making, his extravagant spending, or his lack of legitimacy to his rule? They did not like his poor decision-making. What was the first major battle the U.S. fought in Europe? Was it the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Cantigny, or the Battle of the Western Front? It was the Battle of Cantigny. What became a major issue for the Ottoman army in late 1916? Was it malaria, malnutrition, or was it desertion? That major issue was desertion. Which country was the first to put up a notable revolt against their colonizers during World War I? Was it Egypt, Nigeria, or was it Libya? It was Libya. How many tons of unexploded World War I ammunition is removed from Verdun in France every year? Is it 10 tons, 40 tons, or 160 tons of World War I ammunition? 40 tons of unexploded ammunition is removed every year. Which of these changes largely reversed after the war ended? Was it underemployment, rationing and shortages, or increased women in the workforce? It was increased women in the workforce. And now question 100. What was the name given to the German officials who signed the Treaty of Versailles? Were they the November Criminals, the Honorable Few, or the Ungermanns? They were called the November Criminals. Okay, that's it. That's all I've got. You did an amazing job. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, share your score in the comments, please, and share with friends. Also, check out these videos right here. They're a lot of fun to produce. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.